instead of showing you something, right, what I'm going to do is give you something.
Okay.
And in a way, it's kind of a new perspective. And I'm going to try and do it with just a single playing card. All right?
Okay.
So just take anyone out that you want. Ready? So just take one out. No, you do it. You do it. Reach in. Just take one out. All right, don't let me see. All right, keep it to yourself. You got it?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Place back. Okay. Doesn't matter where. Okay. These good mix up like this. I'm not going to go through and try and look for this card. I'm not going to do that. It's important that you know I'm not going to go through and try and look for it, okay? That's not what this is about, all right?
Okay.
Instead, what I'm going to do is this. I'm just going to take out maybe a random one that could be, but hopefully isn't yours, okay?
No, it's not.
Would you do me a favor? Would you pinch your fingers like this, okay? Just keep this like this for me, just completely flat like that, okay? Now, obviously, no, wait, this is No, look, obviously I haven't found your card, right? And that's not what this is about. But here's the thing, wait, what was your card, by the way? Yeah, what was it? Yeah,
what was the card?
Queen of Diamonds.
Queen of Diamonds, okay. So before you turn that over, I just want you to realize that it's not the card that changes, it's you.
Okay. Yo. Wow. Oh, this is crazy. Wow.
It's you.
Do you feel changed?
Transformed. Yes.
Now, obviously, this isn't your card, but perhaps yours was never lost. What was your card, by the way?
Ace of Spades.
Okay, just before you turn that over, just remember that it's not the card that changes, it's you.
Wow. Jeez, man.
Well, listen, just remember this. Before you turn that over, it's not the card that changes, it's you. Turn it over.
I hate you. You can't tell someone you hate them.
Let me see.
Maybe it's not the card that changes. Maybe it's you.
This is not possible.
Listen, it's not the card that changes, it's you. Have a look.
Stop. That's not. That is not possible.
This is amazing.
What the hell?
Dude, you changed.
I'm different. That's crazy. Wow.
I think he broke me and Gaia. I gotta make a call.
Wow.
Never seen anything like that before.
Ever in my life. And I am
Let's do it. Let's do it.
amazed.
Bring it in. Awesome, man. It's great. Love it.
Wow.
The explanation for it's you. Well, it's funny. On one level, you already know how this is done, dependent on what you've watched here in the Unreal Card Magic project. But the explanation for this effect is going to be slightly different. I mean, I may also use this moment to give you a deeper explanation for the top change and switching stuff as well. But I'm going to talk about this effect and kind of why it exists and what's kind of possible with something as trivial as a card trick. Everything's trivial. Not to get too nihilistic or existentialist, but everything is. So therefore everything is meaningful in a weird way as well. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole, Benjamin. But the point is that really what It's You is an opportunity for me to try and explore different ways of communicating with someone and pulling someone into a slightly more kind of deep moment and give it more depth. There are times when effects have a light trivial nature to them, or a superficial veneer, such as sleeve job, where it's eye candy and it's kind of a fun popping series of moments which are still impressive and will kind of blow someone's mind, but it has a certain lightness to it in a certain way. There are other times where I like to do something when the context is right, and it's very difficult to do that in this type of an environment where you're doing stuff for the unreal stuff. We've done stuff all on the street and stuff like that in the hardest conditions, which is when people have no investment and there's no context and there's no rapport, there's no vibe, there's no atmosphere. It's one of the hardest environments to actually try and create that. Really, this actually is one of those effects that I tend to reserve for a moment that's a bit more intimate, a bit more special, when someone kind of is already asking about something. They've heard you've done stuff, and what did you do? And I've heard that magic's to do with the mind and psychology, and like, is it just what we think? And I've always found it really interesting, and blah blah. That little space that people often exist in, sometimes I'll talk to them, and I'll do this effect for them. And really, this is an example on this. I actually talk about this in the WTF book, along with this project, that the effect is the presentation, right? That's what it is, right? The presentation that you do is the effect, okay? It's, yes, a thing happens, a card changes or a thing, whatever it is, but actually from the position of how someone absorbs the information and how they perceive what is happening, what they remember and perceive in the moment, what they remember and perceive over time, really exists from how you allow what you've done to sit with them. And so with this particular one, I'm really trying to kind of say things that are true for me. And whether or not they actually grasp onto it or not is something different. And at the same time, fun and interesting for me to play with. So I'll say to them, look, instead of showing you something, I'm going to give you something. And really, what that is a new kind of perspective. I'm going to try and do that with nothing but a single playing card. Now, think about this. From us here in this position, thinking about, okay, card tricks and controls, and okay, Ben, it's a bit pretentious. But think about it from the perspective of an uninformed observer. The idea of saying, I'm going to try and give you something, a kind of a new perspective, but I'm going to try and do it with nothing other than a single card. There's something about that's a really interesting thing of like, well, what does that even mean? Okay. So I then say, okay, and then I go into what is effectively a standard, well, not a standard, but just a transformation. A card is going to be chosen, controlled, an incorrect card will be shown, it will be switched via double lift or via top change, and then it will change in their hands. And so also what this structure is for me is a moment to actually figure out the best ways of doing those moves. Now, I do that generally anyway across effects, but I really love doing it in this particular routine because I'm trying to have the best way of having it selected in this moment, the best way of controlling it. I'm trying to map it onto them as much as possible. And I'm trying to change and switch in the right way. I'm using this as a moment for me to truly become present and see if I can tune in to the specifics. It's also where I tend to use one of the best controls on earth, something that I use elsewhere in one of the other effects that you'll see this month. But I often use this control, so they have the card goes back, whatever this is, a 6 of hearts. I can do whatever it is that I want to do, okay? I can even give it to them to shuffle, and then they shuffle. Okay, and once they've shuffled, I then take this back, and at the end of this shuffling procedure, no matter what they've done, the card is now on top. And the reason is because after my initial control of doing this, like this, I palm this off and hand this to them and say, you give them a good shuffle, a good mix. They do. And this is a really great way. I think this is the best control on earth, by the way. I think that there is no better control than giving them the deck to shuffle, right? How could you possibly control anything, you know? And then you take this back and add this on. It looks so clean. There is nothing. What you have to master is palming and holding out and the moment. And so often I do this in that. I feel like actually what I'm doing in this is I'm working and I'm creating, you know, this is just as much an effect for them as it is for me. As I'm figuring out right here, this is about me trying to really kind of play with the craft. So I'm going to palm this out, give this to them, and whether I hold out, I might do a palm transfer, dependent on if they start shuffling on a table or I want to kind of bend it the other way for a second, or my angles, and this is great, boom, boom, I take this back. By the way, I'll talk about ways to actually add this on, maybe later in one of the other effects. I'll actually talk about a good way to add this on. But for now, we'll talk about I'm just going to come back over and just add this on like this, okay? But now I'm in this position where I've said to them, okay, so you have one in mind, they're all mixed, it's somewhere inside, okay? Now I'm not going to try to go through and try and find it. I turn these over and I peek, all right? So in this case, it's the 6. And I'm going to say, look, in fact, we'll just take out any card, it doesn't matter. And if you think about what you've said at the beginning, we say I'm going to give you a new perspective and I'll try and do it with a single card, right? This kind of links to that already, but it doesn't matter. I say, okay, great. In fact, would you like hold your hand out for me and do this or whatever it is? I'll talk in a second about the top change. But I'm going to now switch this for their card and hand it to them. Okay. So again, I'll talk more about the top change in a second, but I'm going to say, okay, so I don't know, you had a card in mind, right? So would you just hold on to this? So this is the Queen of Clubs. This isn't it. No. Okay. Would you just hold your hand out? Great. Hand it to them. They are now holding onto this card. Now, in this moment, I'll say to them, okay, so now obviously this isn't your card. I know this is not your card. And I'm not going to try and find it because perhaps it was never lost. And I like that idea. I mean, actually, it's also true. It was never lost. I had it under perfect control the whole way through. So I like the idea that you're also subtly tipping methodology, but it also, maybe they'll never connect it in that way, but it also seems to have this kind of strange kind of philosophical ring to it. I'm not going to try and find your card, but perhaps it was never lost. It also kind of subtly moves towards kind of people that are looking at self-actualization and trying to find themselves, and what they realize is that ultimately they have all of the answers right in front of them already. Everything you ever need, you already have. There's elements of that. And again, I'm not leaning too heavy on any of it. I'm just kind of talking. But I know aspects of how I might think about it. And yet I'm trying to do that in ways where I'm playing with the craft and finding the right moments for the top change and the controls and all those bits. So it feels like a very connected, very present effect. So I say, yeah, so I'm not going to try and find it, but perhaps it was never lost. Now, we'll look at them when they're holding this card, and they have no idea that will have changed yet. I'll say, look, just remember, before you turn that over, it's not the card that changes. It's you. And there's an element of hearing that and thinking there's a kind of a pretension to it, and maybe there is, but it's also literally true. The card doesn't change. I mean, it changes in their perception. Their perception of it changes. This card, has always been the 6 of Hearts. Always. This has never been anything other than the 6 of Hearts. This card over here has always been the Queen of Clubs. I showed them the Queen of Clubs, and then I switched it. They didn't see the switch, and I handed it to them. But that card that they're now holding has always been the 6 of Hearts. The card doesn't change. It's been exchanged and switched. And again, I'm playing a kind of a semantic little kind of game here. But what I'm really referring to on one level is the fact that magic often operates on a perceptual level. I mean, that's the only place it operates is on a psychological perceptual level. Your perception of events, your perception of what is solid and what is not, of what is real and what is not, is how magic operates. And really what I'm saying here is it's not the card that changes. The card doesn't just magically change. It's you. It's your perception of events. And I think that some people feel that profundity to it, or it's not even, there isn't inherent profundity in there. It's just the fact that they choose to interpret in that way. Other people won't, and they won't really hear what you're saying at all. And they're just going to go, oh, well, that's the one, mate. And they're just going to react to it because a card changed in their hand, right? I'm very aware of that. But there's something quite beautiful about doing this for me that I really love, because it gives me all these chances to say something that could be interpreted in all these different ways, to play with these different angles of meaning while being honest and giving myself an opportunity to become present with them. And because of that, I'm really trying to find the right moments to do all these moves. And in this really incredibly simple structure, you can find something that has a bit more meaning and value than just doing a card trick. You can find something that actually has got these multiple layers of potential insight or investigation or play for you as well as for them. And the fact that you don't know exactly how it's going to be interpreted, again, I love, because I also want to feel and see how they interpret that at the end. It feels like it's somehow giving me a code to understanding aspects of how laymen perceive stuff. So that's really the basic idea of It's You. And this explanation is explaining less in the way of technique and more in the way of why it exists and what's possible with a structure. And I'm basically also saying, look, I'm not that it's up to me to give you permission, but you should give yourself permission to explore things with certain routines in ways that you want to. If you want to explore a routine, explore a concept, play with an idea, do something for you in a certain way, you should, because anything is possible. Okay, so that's that. One thing I will quickly come back to is what I said about the top change. I'm going to use this moment just to say a couple of things on that. I know I talked about this in the technical thing, but really what I'm doing with this move is I'm really trying to find the beat and rhythm of doing it for them in the moment. I want to make this absolutely perfect. Sometimes it's this movement, sometimes it's this movement, sometimes it's putting it back, sometimes it's gesturing with the shoulders and kind of looking around and, saying, okay, you guys come in here, both of you, or whatever it is, or are you right or left-handed? Sometimes I do that. I'll put it back and kind of move both hands like this, and then I'll come back to the center and do it. I don't really know, or I might ask them to bring their hand a bit more forward, whatever it is. There's many different ways, but it's always the same, as you can see from the above or the side camera. You can see that it's always this action, either this way or this way, right? Or it's stopped for a second in this way, or this hand gestures and this hand gestures, or this and this. And it's always exactly the same flow. Really, the art of the top change is your ability to find the moment and time it right and alter those little moves, even though they're simple. Is if you've got one structure, which is always hold your hand out, right? Yes, it's simple, but you've always got that, and you've got to crowbar it into every moment. If you've got 50 different structures, then which one do you pick? So actually what's hard about having 50 simple structures is finding the right one in a nanosecond. And that's where I think the art of the top change is. That's something to work on for a lifetime. And It's You is one of those ones where I intentionally, really, truly try to figure out ways to do that with them and try to create that vibe and context in order to get that top change feeling extra smooth, extra bespoke and in the moment. Because ultimately I don't want any of this to feel like technique. I really want it to feel like I'm saying, look, yeah, great, you've got one in mind, hold this. I'm not going to try and find your card. Obviously that's not it, but perhaps it was never lost. Just remember, it's not the card that changes, it's you. And there's just nothing for them to go on. And all of a sudden this card they're like, what? It feels like a word game. It feels like there are no technical moving parts. And it's like, well, hang on, what even happened there? I love that way of playing with card magic, and it can be done with nothing more than a simple transformation. It also gives you the ability to control and change in any way that you want. If you don't want to do a top change, you don't have to. Once you've got this card to the top, that's whatever it is. In this case, I say it was a 8 of diamonds. I could do a double lift. And in this case, this double is showing this 6 of clubs. I said, this wasn't yours. Okay, would you pinch your fingers for me and just hand it to them, right? Or I don't have to. I could turn down here and say, just hold your hand out. That's it, great, like this. This is one of the things that I've done with isolation, which I come forward to where their hand is, I meet it, it's in this space, and I say, yeah, would you just hold on to the edge of that for me, right? And I leave it and take the hand away, okay? But figuring out what's actually right for this moment, a top change or a double lift. What's the right control here? Actually, should I just do a Mahatma shuffle in this position? Should I execute a pass and go into, should I do a riffle shuffle? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that suggests more skill than I want to kind of communicate. Maybe just an overhand shuffle, maybe being a bit sloppy with it is right. Maybe actually palming off and saying, look, you mix them up so I don't have any control over anything. I don't want you to think there's any sleight of hand going on. They do that. You know, you take these back, turn these over and say, okay, let's just take out one. This wasn't it, was it? Okay, which one of could you hold your hand? That's it, perfect. I hand this to them. And then that 1 second, you've now done the change. Well, you know, figuring out that way while using a structure, scripted element, which by the way, I change all the time. I always change elements of my scripts and structures, but I'm intentionally trying to find the moment with them, find the right ways to get underneath the radar with these different ways of handling it. I know the structure, I know selection and control and switch, okay? Those are the things, but I know the selection can be different, the control and the switch can be different. And in that somehow, I'm going to find the right beats for those, select the right things, and I'm going to communicate this thing to them, which opens up the idea of it maybe being deeper with them. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to include it in this project was to kind of show that those things are kind of possible. They're really interesting and fun things to play with. And maybe it's you that can also play with that idea. I don't know. Maybe that was a cheesy ending. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, I hope you've had fun. Enjoy. Go and play with It's You on them. I can't do this anymore. Right. See you later.